Here's a story that we're all familiar with. We're at a tournament or doing an online ranked match, and we're doing our combo, and all of a sudden our opponent has a problem with what we're doing, even though we're doing the combo correctly. You call a judge over, you explain the game state to the judge looks at it, and determines that what you're doing is fine, and you continue. Or you call your opponent on something that they're trying to do, and the judge determines that they can't do that. Today is story time as we go over such times. These first two take place on the dueling book. I use set rotation to set unit hanger on my side of the field and pseudospace on their side of the field. I attempt to flip up unit hanger to activate it in order to do my combo. My opponent says, can't. I ask them, why not? My opponent replies, because you can't activate field spells while those cards are set. For those of you who don't know, set rotation reads, set 2 field spells with different names from your deck onto the field. One on your side of the field and one on your opponent's side of the field. While either of those cards remain set on the field, neither player can activate or set other field spells. I proceed to tell them it says other field spells. As in, I cannot activate a field spell from my hand. Other refers to anything that's not already set on the board. But my opponent was not having it. They just did not want to accept that the card said other field spells. Similar situation, except I set pseudospace to my side of the field and unit hanger to my opponent's side of the field after already using the effect of unit hanger. I attempt to use the effect of pseudospace to copy the unit hanger so that when I summon the A that I equipped it off of unit driver, I can equip another B from my deck. My opponent says that I can't. Why? Because I already activated unit hanger for the turn. That has no impact on the current game situation whatsoever. I am not activating another copy of unit hanger. I am simply copying the effect of unit hanger with pseudospace. Activating means I am using the card from my hand or flipping it from face down to face up to gain the effect. I told them that, and their response was, so if I use pseudospace to copy the effect of Magic Meltdown, do I get the effect? I told them, sure, but you don't get the search effect because you're not activating Magic Meltdown. They didn't want to accept that. They were convinced that copying the effect of a field spell was the same as activating it, and that is incorrect. And I was trying to figure out why they thought this, but they didn't want to give me an answer, and they thought I was trying to get them to rage quit and trying to get a free dumb, in their own words. I don't know either. This next one takes place on EDO Pro. I don't remember if this was game 1 or 2. Anyways, I'm going second, and my opponent either must have bricked or thought they were baiting out the Ash Blossom from my hand when they activated Red Ice Fusion. I chain Ash Blossom to it, as one does, and all I'm thinking now is they're going to set 3 to 4 back row and pass turn. What happens instead is my opponent types in chat, haha, you wasted it. For those of you who don't know, you cannot normal or special summon the turn you activate Red Ice Fusion, and you can only activate one per turn. And Ash Blossom negates the effect and not the activation. It took all of 0.5 seconds for my opponent to realize this after sending that message, because they immediately rage quit the match. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we read our cards. It looks like I got my free dumb after all. This has actually happened in quite a few tournaments in online matches, and I'm sure my fellow Dogma players can relate. Some time ago, you activated Dogmatica Maximus, and you send 2 cards from your extra deck, probably Apollonia and Titanclad, and your opponent sends 2 cards from their extra deck. A few turns later, your opponent draws into Monster Reborn or some other revive card. Your opponent attempts to activate Monster Reborn and targets the monster that they sent off of Maximus. You tell your opponent that they can't do that, because it was not properly summoned from the deck. At this point, you have to explain to your opponent that all extra deck monsters must be properly summoned first in order to be revived off of Monster Reborn. Your opponent responds, but it doesn't say that on the card. Then you have to call a judge over, and the judge has to explain to your opponent that since Master Duel 4, all extra deck monsters must first be properly summoned from the extra deck through their summoning mechanic in order to be summoned from the graveyard. And you might be thinking that I'm talking about newcomers who have no idea. But I've had this experience with people who have been playing since Master Duel 4, since Master Duel 3 even, who are well beyond the novice level, and they still don't know that. So, and at this point, your opponent realizes that they've lost, and they scoop. I would like to say this is an isolated incident, but this is literally every time I enter into a tournament with this deck. Sometimes during the same tournament. The judge at that tournament, who is a great friend of mine, had commented that the game state was exactly the same both times. I had on board Mechaba, Ecclesia, Maximus, and Winda. In a similar scenario, on EDO Pro, I use Maximus to send Herald of the Arclight and Natis. My opponent sends Titanclad and their own Natis. New chain. Herald, Chainlink 1 to add in Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. Natis to pop my opponent's back row. And my opponent chains their own Natis, targeting my Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon that is on board. And my opponent chains to that, Call by the Grave. At this point, I am thinking that they're going to target my Herald so that I don't get my search, and I just lose. I'm done. That's not what happened. My opponent targets my Natis, not realizing that it also negates their Natis. So, not only do I keep my Abyss Dragon, but I also search out Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon, and I ritual summon it, and I punch with Giant Dragon. And we'll get to that deck in a future video. So, to recap, you can activate the cards that you set off a set rotation. You can copy the effects of a field spell with pseudospace, even though it says you can activate one per turn. Ash Blossom negates the effect and not the activation. You can't revive extra deck cards that was sent off of Maximus. And Call by the Grave negates your cards as well. And to be completely fair, we've all been there. We're trying to do something neat, and we forget about one thing that makes it so that we can't do the thing that we're trying to do. Or we just change something at the wrong time. Or we just simply forget that some interactions work in the way that opponent is trying to do. We all have a lot of judgment, and we can become better players from it. Thank you all so much for watching. As it currently stands, 93.8% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. Have I told you about Lilith's diet? My name is Brent, and I am Maxed Out Weird, and we will see you all next time. Peace.